The opinions and views expressed during this program are not necessarily those of Fundy Communications, TVNB, or its sponsors.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Hot Topic on TVNB. Here in the Schiller region, the topic is hot tonight. It talks about smoking and non-smoking. Boy, what a subject. Do you know that tobacco use is the #1 cause of preventable deaths and diseases in Canada? Tobacco use causes over 1,300 deaths in New Brunswick only on an annual basis, 45,000 in Canada. The health, social, and economic costs of tobacco in New Brunswick were $265,551,000 in 1992. That's 7 years ago. You can imagine what they're like now. Exposure to environmental tobacco smoke causes or worsens diseases such as heart disease, asthma, and cancer. Should we stop smoking in public places? That's our subject tonight. Our guests tonight are two very special people. Firstly, we have Bill Murphy. A lot of you know Bill. Bill is an entrepreneur, restaurateur here in Bathurst, whose place of business is smoke-free. And his views are very, very interesting, and you'll be hearing from him very shortly. Our other guest is Dr. David Asif. He's a medical doctor, specialist in public health. By the way, he's our medical health officer for the entire northeastern part of New Brunswick. Welcome, gentlemen, both of you, to the program tonight. Now, firstly, before we get into this, I want to mention to you all that this is a participatory program. We want you, the public, to watch us, listen to us, and then offer us your opinions by giving us a call. The numbers will come up on the screen very shortly, and you will be able to call us and speak to us and everyone else out there at the same time. We have to remember one important thing. This is a civil program. So we have to try and keep ourselves under control. It's been very good so far all the time I've been on the program, but we ask you to, if you would, to please comply to that. Now, we have a segment for you to be able to see what's going on, and we'll go to that right now.
Years ago, the non-smoker's right to breathe smoke-free air was barely discernible through the bluish haze that filled most indoor public spaces. Smokers lit up whenever and wherever they pleased, without a second's thought to the consequences. Smoker and non-smoker alike accepted this as the norm. The dangers of second-hand smoke had not yet been publicly accepted.
You have one group which is potentially endangering the health of another. The smokers, by smoking in a public place, are contaminating the air. And this does pose a risk, a very real risk, which has been scientifically proven, to the health of people who do not smoke and do not wish to be exposed to smoke.
All this changed when the scientific evidence finally emerged regarding the hazards of both smoking and exposure to second-hand smoke.
A number of years ago, back around 8 or 9 years ago, there was a great deal of concern among Miramichi residents about polyaromatic hydrocarbons that had been discovered in the Newcastle water system. This was in very trace amounts, parts per trillion. It is interesting to note that cigarette smoke actually contains the exact same chemicals in quite a bit higher concentrations, perhaps orders of magnitude higher, and yet people perhaps aren't as acutely aware of that. And so certainly there is probably more to be concerned about in terms of secondhand smoke in public places than there ever was with respect to the Newcastle water system.
Soon, non-smokers were the majority, and a loud and militant one at that. Thus began the war between smokers and non-smokers, one claiming the right to enjoy a smoke-filled environment, and the other the right to a smoke-free environment.
Well, I think in 1999, it's probably high time that we look at this issue very carefully. I recently, along with the Smoke-Free Task Force out of St. John, made a presentation to Municipal City Council, and my understanding is that they've taken this under advisement, and they are considering, in fact, they've forwarded this to their committee that looks at bylaw institution, and they will be looking at whether or not it's appropriate to do so. I think that this is healthy. It's part of the ongoing debate, and I'm glad that it's being looked at.
Smokers have lost the battle in many parts of the country. Miramichi Mall in Miramichi West remains one of the last strongholds where they can sit and chat and smoke. Now even that bastion of smokers' rights is under attack. A petition is being circulated that will be presented to the mall's management on November the 9th, asking that the mall be declared a smoke-free environment. The reaction from some of the mall patrons was so negative that the originator of the petition, Jim Bond, declined the opportunity for an on-camera interview. Despite the negative response from smokers who stand to lose their gathering place, a March 1999 survey of Miramichi residents by ECOS Research Associates shows that a large majority does in fact favor the idea of smoking restrictions in indoor public places, 61 to 23, with 16 undecided. In fact, the report indicates that smoking restrictions would actually increase traffic in many areas. This is particularly true of coffee shops, but also applies to pool and bingo halls, bowling alleys, community centers, and even bars. In Miramichi, non-smokers now outnumber smokers by 3 to 1. It won't be long before there will be very few places left where it will be possible to light up in comfort. Some might say that is as it should be. There will always be others who will strongly disagree. For TVNB, I'm Nick Stevens.
All right, we're back. Now, that was a very interesting topic, or report there. It gave you some statistics that said non-smokers outnumber smokers 3 to 1 at this point. It also said that it won't be long before there won't be very many places for people to be able to sit down and smoke in peace. Debatable point, isn't it? We've got another report now. I want you to view this, and then we'll be back and we'll talk more about it as we go along.
Cigarette smoking is a health risk that causes many deaths and costs government enormous sums. Although non-smokers are opposed to breathing secondhand smoke, a die-hard minority still smokes in public places. The City of Bathurst is looking into drafting a no-smoking bylaw.
We don't have a smoking bylaw in this city, and it probably won't be a smoking bylaw we'll be looking at. It'll be a smoke-free environment bylaw, and deciding where and if people can smoke in public places. You know, that's what we're really going to have to be looking at. And we're looking at other municipalities to see what they have. Moncton has a bylaw. I believe Fredericton has a bylaw. So we've got some of the documentation necessary. Now we're going to present it to a committee of people from the municipality and see what they think. And then we'll decide what we're going to do with the smoke-free zones. What we have to decide as a community, you know, can we survive if we ban smoking from all restaurants, or do we have that place to do that? Is that the place in the municipality to do that? So that's what the smoke-free task force will have to decide, whether we do that or not, how far we go.
Many businesses are not waiting for a bylaw and are already becoming non-smoking.
That a lot of businesses have gone out on their own and actually said that they are now smoke-free establishments. And I believe that they're doing just as well, if not better, since they've changed over. So we have our Civic Center, which is smoke-free, City Hall, which is smoke-free, all our public buildings are smoke-free. And now we're asking the general public to cooperate so that people that have allergies, people that just can't stand secondhand smoke, see, and people that shouldn't be subjected to secondhand smoke, they don't have to face that every time they go into a mall or every time they go into a public building.
One of the many businesses that has adopted a no-smoking policy is the Coffee Stain Restaurant.
Smoking allowed in my establishment? No, there's no smoking allowed in my establishment. I decided to go non-smoking on April the 1st of this year, just to try it out, and apparently a lot of my customers rather have the non-smoking atmosphere. A few of our customers seem to complain about the smoking, and they said they could taste it in the food, and you know, it seems to accumulate on the ceiling and on the walls and stuff like that. So cleaning was kind of hectic at times, because we had to clean probably every 3 months to get the smoke off and repaint every year. It was just getting a little bit too expensive. No, I feel the city doesn't have the right to tell me whether I should be a smoking restaurant or a non-smoking restaurant, because they're not running my business. I'm running the business. I should be the one to determine whether it's smoking or non-smoking. And I don't like the way the government handled this whole situation, because The federal government kind of handed it down to the provincial government, and the provincial government handed it down to the municipal government. Then the municipal government is kind of throwing it on the shoulders of the small business. And it's our business. I think we should have the right to decide.
Non-smokers are already voting with their feet by patronizing establishments that do not allow smoking.
Well, when we went from smoking to non-smoking, it seemed to affect probably about maybe 4 customers, but we gained about 15 to 20 customers, new customers. So it hasn't really affected us. The bottom line, it hasn't affected us one bit. Well, if the city does pass the bylaw, it might be good for some establishments, but then again, it's not going to be good for others. So it's going to be a kind of a catch-22 situation. Like the bars, people want to go and drink, they want to smoke. Even some of the non-smokers that go in and drink want to smoke. So, you know, it's a catch-22 situation, and I think the governments, they have other things to do. They should be concentrating on other things and not concentrating on the smoking gun, so to speak.
We can't stop smokers from damaging their own lungs, but non-smokers don't want to inhale cigarette smoke. City Council has to decide whether to augment the no-smoking trend with a bylaw or just butt out. For TVNB, I'm Bob Barkley.
Well, what a picture to end the program or end a report on. A dirty ashtray. I don't mean to make light of it, but I'll tell you this, it makes me think about it. I, as a grandfather with grandchildren, find myself in a very precarious situation almost every time my little granddaughter comes running up to me after having been in the car with her father who smokes. All I can do is smell the smoke in her hair. What's that do to her lungs inside? I really concern myself about that. Now, I'm a recovering smoker, personally. I smoked for years and years and years, and I stopped 11 years ago. And, you know, I haven't had any trouble with it. I haven't had any desire to start it again. I am now bothered somewhat by the smell of stale smoke and tobacco here and there. But I do respect the right of the person that wants to smoke. If he wants to smoke, they're his lungs, and he can do what he wants with his lungs. But please leave mine alone. That's all I ask. I go to Dr. Rassif. Doctor, those interviews are incredible. They tell us a story. Can you add something to it? I'm sure you can add a lot to it. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thanks, Jack. I think really the main issue here, well, there's a couple of issues. One is people's health. The example that I like to use is, let's say, for instance, okay, one of the toxins that we know exists in cigarette smoke is benzene. Benzene is a poison, and benzene causes cancer. Now, if somebody was taking benzene and putting it in the municipal water supply, pouring it into the reservoir, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about your kids drinking benzene every time they go to the tap to drink a glass of water? Well, you know, it's the same thing when people smoke in an indoor environment and other people have to breathe that same air with that benzene, with a whole lot of other carcinogens and toxins and poisons in it. And to me, it's a very clear-cut issue. People need to be protected from having their environment poisoned.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. How much benzene would it take in the drinking water of a community the size of Bathurst to truly affect how many parts per million that would be equal to close to a cigarette?
Well, rather than I actually don't know the answer right offhand, but I'll tell you something. I mean, if it was my kids, if it was me, if it was my friends and my family, I wouldn't want them exposed to any benzene.
Okay, I'm not disputing that point. I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here because someone is going to say, you know, I mean, I can remember a few years ago when they talked about one of the sugar supplements that they used in soft drinks, and they said that it could cause cancer. Mm-hmm. But we in the soft drink business, as I was in those days, said that it would take 80 cans of pop a day per person for 4 years to be able to equal the amount used to test in the animals that they used to prove that it was cancerous. So it got a little out of hand, really. It can. You can exaggerate something. I'm not saying you're exaggerating here, but someone will say that you are exaggerating, and that's why I asked the question.
And in each case, I mean, I don't know what extent you want me to go into this, but epidemiologically, whenever you look at risk versus exposure, and you have a dose-response relationship like that, usually what you see is a kind of a semi-logarithmic curve. And at some point, yes, the effects diminish towards zero, but at what point do they do so? You have to remember also that at some point it becomes very difficult to measure a net change in risk. And so as you get to lower and lower exposures, you start extrapolating and say, well, maybe it's zero here, maybe it's zero there. At what point can you detect a difference above the background risk that you have anyway in your environment, and what proportion of it is due to this versus the other risk? You know, so there's really no definite answer. What I'm saying is, if you're talking about a poison that we know to be a poison that is in the environment that people have to take in involuntarily, isn't it safe to try and get as close to zero exposure as we can?
You're on. You're 100% right. Now, we haven't seen the numbers up on the screen, but I'm going to tell you what they are. 549-6674 if you're in the Bathurst area. Give us a call, and if you're forming some thoughts already, don't be shy. We're here for that reason. Also, if you're outside the Bathurst calling region, you can call us at 1-888-307-TVNB. That's 8862. And again, I say this program's success is based on your participation. So don't be shy. I'm sure there are a lot of people that have some opinions. Bill Murphy, entrepreneur, restaurateur who has a smoke-free restaurant. Bill, you have some very interesting information that you put together before you made your decision. And you're here for two reasons. One of them, of course, is the reason for the decision, and the other is the right to make the decision. Expand on that for us, will you?
Well, when my restaurant decided to do non-smoking, I based it on two polls that I conducted with my smoking and non-smoking customers. And the results of the polls were 81% were in favor of non-smoking and 19% in favor of smoking. And this poll was done in June and August of '98. And the second poll, 83% in favor of non-smoking and 17% in favor of smoking. And that was done in January and March of '99. So
now, can you tell me, Bill, those people that replied to your poll, okay, and it was done individually in your restaurant, in your place of business, of those people, do you know which ones were actually, or how many were actually smokers and how many were not?
the majority were smokers.
The majority were smokers.
Were smokers.
What was their reasoning?
They wanted to bring their wives and their children in and enjoy the food that was there and not be harassed with the smoking.
I see. That's interesting. That's a different way of looking at it. You know, I mean, that shows me anyway that maybe the smoker is very much aware of the harm that it does.
They are very aware.
And we're not giving them credit for that. That's important, that we recognize that people who do smoke have a habit that is very hard to get rid of, but they do understand that it can affect other people and therefore stay clear of those people. So that's a point in their favor, right? Don't you think, Doctor?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, I repeat our phone numbers, 1-888-307-TVNB, which is 8862. If you're in the Bathurst region, 549-6674, and we'll be glad to entertain your calls. Now, I look at some information that comes off the internet, really, and it's quite simple. It's straightforward. It's called side stream smoke. Every time anyone lights up a cigarette, a cigar, or pipe tobacco, smoke enters the air from two sources. The first is mainstream smoke, which the smoker pulls through the mouthpiece when he inhales or puffs. Non-smokers are also exposed to mainstream smoke after the smoker exhales it. The second and even more dangerous source is side stream smoke, which goes directly into the air from the burning tobacco. Side stream smoke, which a non-smoker inhales whenever he or she is around someone who is smoking, actually has higher concentration of some harmful compounds than the mainstream smoke. The mainstream smoke inhaled by the smoker, as a matter of fact. Studies show that there are several cancer-causing substances, as well as more tar and nicotine in side stream smoke as compared to mainstream smoke. Again, what that tells me, Doctor, is that the person smoking and inhaling the cigarette is inhaling the part that seems to satisfy his or her demand or requirement or whatever you want to call it, and he expels the no good stuff and passes it on to the person alongside of him. Does that sound logical?
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the subtle ironies of this whole business is that, in fact, the people that don't smoke are maybe at more risk than the people that smoke because they're getting the more dangerous side stream smoke.
Aha. Again, that's something that people probably don't realize. It's a very important thing. We have a caller on the line, gentlemen. Bertha from Beresford. Are you with us, Bertha?
Yes, I am.
Should we stop smoking in public places?
For myself, and I believe so because I'm a non-smoker, but not just because I want to be a non-smoker. I have allergies to smoke, and when I go near smoke, I have a hard time breathing. I have to, to take my deep air. I try to hold my breath as much as I can, but most places you do go in public now, which I'm thankful. Thank God for Tim Hortons, those places. You can go and there's no smoking, which I thank them personally. And but there's still places that there is smoking, like in malls and stuff like that. There is like it's bad, like you know what I'm saying? Like it's bad for clothes or anything like that. If you go by, to the clothes, you can smell it. And if you go into a club, it's the same thing. Like you can't go where there's no smoking. I had put an ad in the paper, try to get a club open to non-smokers. I mean, we have rights too, but I'm not against people who smoke. I hope they don't get me wrong because I totally feel sorry for them because my daughter's one of them who's trying to quit smoking right now, and she's going for help, and it's hard. It's not easy for them. I can see, and I have a sister and brother-in-law, which I go there, and they barely smoke when I go. They cut down because they know how bad it is, and I appreciate what they do too. But what I'm saying, it's nice to see people out there interested in it and see more of it, and I think for business-wise, too, it's good for them because it's the clean air we're breathing, and it's not only us, it's our children, like they say, and every one of us, too.
Tell me, Bertha, I'll ask you the question that I asked Bill Murphy. Do you think that it should be legislated by government, or should it be free choice to the business people?
I think it should be not free choice because, I mean, if you leave it to free choice, we'll never have anything done, if you ask me, because, I mean, we've seen some things that people say leave free choice. I'm not saying take everything away from everyone just because, they're people's right and everything, but this is very, very concerned manner for me anyway, because I have to start taking the pump now, and wherever I go, they say, well, we don't see you anymore. What's the reason? Well, because there's too much smoke. I can't go where there's smoke, and you have to pry yourself of stuff or doing things because there's smoke around. You can't go. It's like, oh, no, I can't go because that's there. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's fair, and I think it should be controlled by the, like you said, by those people, and that way there, maybe more people get used to it, and I think it's for a good cause. It's not just something that we want to, or if it's like, let's say if I can't go to a hockey game or something like that because the hockey game is good, I can't go tonight. Okay, well, I'll go the next time they're around, but you have a choice. But this year you don't have a choice when it comes to your health. It's there for life, and it's not getting any better for me, so I think it's a very concern.
Thank you, Bertha, very, very much.
You're
we'll
very
go on to
welcome.
another caller, and I'm going to add a question here while we wait for the next caller. What about the people that were around many years ago, Dr. Asif? Maybe you could tell me this, but people smoked, and yet there didn't seem to be as many respiratory diseases or ailments as there are today. Is there a reason for that? Can you explain that somehow, some way? People seem to smoke more in the old days than they do today.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what, Jack, I don't know for sure if that's really true. I mean, I know that in the past, perhaps people weren't as acutely aware of some things. Maybe the medical diagnoses were not made in all cases. Maybe people were less likely to go to a physician when they were, sick with a certain number of symptoms. I know that's happened with a lot of diseases. I mean, sometimes, a new test comes out, and then all of a sudden we think that, gee, there's so much more of that disease. What's going on? It's an outbreak. Yeah. But in fact, just there's a new test. Maybe people are more aware of it. Maybe doctors are more aware of it. So I don't know if you can really extrapolate going back for a number of years and saying respiratory disease were less common. The other thing you got to remember is that there's a lot of other things going on. Like we know that our environment is changing. We know that asthma is a lot more common than it used to be, and that could complicate a lot of things. We also know that back in the old days, we had a lot higher infant mortality rate. And one of the things that people have theorized is that in the old days, some of the babies that were more prone to having respiratory disease may not have survived through early infancy. And so as a result, because of better medical care early in life, later on you have more people around, who are still around, that are susceptible to those kind of respiratory disease. So you really, you're comparing apples and oranges. You can't really go back and say, yeah, it's that much worse now. Having said all that, I think that there's no doubt. I mean, and let me just say that I think that the last caller made a very interesting point when she was talking about free choice versus legislation. I mean, I think that really it's all the same thing. We live in a democracy. We live in a society where people, through the grassroots, are able to make their viewpoints known, and these have an effect. Now, I see it as basically two ways that it happens. One is economically, so they vote with their pocketbook. And people like entrepreneurs like Mr. Murphy here have picked up, have sensed the fact that the customers are saying, yeah, I'd rather have a non-smoking environment. And he's responded to that. He's in the forefront, I think, of a new movement that's happening.
I've got another caller on the line. Can you hold your thought for a minute? We have Bella from Robertville. Bella, should we stop smoking in public places?
Oh, yes, you should. Because, I don't know, like some place like the mall. Yesterday I wasn't there, and there was this man with a baby about 3 months old. He was smoking right on top of the baby. And my gosh, that baby can't talk. If he found that smell so strong like I did when I just passed by him, they should stop smoking in the mall. And I know I got a nephew myself and can't go see the Santa Claus during Christmas time because he got emphysema, and he can't go in the mall because that's where they all stand and smoke, where the Santa Claus chair is. And try to explain to a child he can't go to the mall because there's smoke in there. Adults could understand, but not a child.
Well, thank you very much, Bella.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Very much appreciated. It prompts me to read a statistic here again, is that parents who smoke at home can aggravate symptoms in some children with asthma and even trigger asthma episodes. Parents should only smoke outside the home, or better yet, quit smoking altogether. Even among children without asthma, a team of researchers found that acute respiratory illnesses happen twice as often in young children whose parents smoke around them as compared to those with non-smoking parents. For example, secondhand smoke exposure is associated with 150,000 to 300,000 cases of bronchitis and pneumonia in infants and young children less than 18 months. My goodness. You with me? You with us on that one, Doctor?
Yeah. Well, it's true.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Bill, you got somebody that seems to agree with you about legislation. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't know. For that little child, I think that's ignorance on the part of the parent, and it's a lack of education on the part of the parent also, and it's I don't know. It's going to impact that child quite a bit.
Very good. Okay, gentlemen, we're going to go to a message break as well as some opinions from the people on the street. And we'll be right back after that. Thank you very much.
Do you think that Bathurst should adopt a smoke-free or no-smoking bylaw?
No, I don't see no sense about it. No. Everybody has his rights to smoke. This is supposed to be a free country. The ones that complain about smoking, they're the ones that smoked. So I got nothing against that.
Because I don't smoke, I'm allergic to the smell of smoke. I don't like when you go to the store and it stinks. The smoke, people, your clothes stink and everything. It's not nice, plus it's not good for the kids.
I think it's your own opinion. Like, if in store or something, I can see not smoking, but like, they should have smoking sections. Like, there's the Tim Hortons in Campbellton has a glassed-off room.
Because it's time they looked after the non-smokers with all the health problems, and it's such a big issue nowadays that I agree it should definitely be looked into. Like the commercial said on TV the other time, it's time we made smoking history.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is TVNB, the New Brunswick channel. Turn a standard Sunday drive into an interior exploration of some of New Brunswick's most beautiful and historic homes on Great New Brunswick Homes. Join the tour Thursdays at 8:30 or Saturdays at 2, exclusively on TVNB.
I want to say this to you guys over 50. A prostate exam may be inconvenient, but so is prostate cancer. More than 4,700 Canadians die of it every year, but there are lots of survivors. Call your doctor today.
Brought to you by the Canadian Cancer Society.
We hear a lot about globalization, but what does it really mean? For some, it means a bottom line of more. More trade, more profits, more power. But for others, a lot of others, it means less. A kind of global downsizing resulting in more poverty than ever before. USC Canada believes in a different kind of bottom line, where decisions made at the local level help give people more control over their lives. In 7 countries around the world, USC Canada is helping strengthen local economies with community-based development programs that create work, protect the environment, and respect local knowledge. USC Canada, local projects in a global context. 56 Spark Street, Ottawa.
This is TVNB, the New Brunswick channel.
And we're back, and we've got a caller on the line. We'll go directly to our caller, Buster in Bathurst. Good evening, Buster.
How are you today, Jack?
Very, very well. Should we stop smoking in public places?
Well, I agree with certain places like small, where there's small spaces and stuff there, it does maybe bother a lot of people. But in larger places like malls and stuff like that, I don't see no reason why people have to go outside to smoke. And other places in businesses and stuff, they should have a place for people for smoking. I'm not saying that they should smoke, but that's entirely up to a person themselves. Like, I'm a non-smoker. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I don't know why. I've done everything else in my life, but I've never smoked a cigarette. But the people, I finished a 40-year stint with the local pulp and paper industry here, and for those 40 years I remained in the steam plant. And in that time, we worked when there was 8 boilers going. There was coal and liquor being burnt, and there was sawdust being burnt, and there was a blue fog, and everybody seemed to smoke in there, which is a place which you were allowed to smoke anywheres. But, you know, those people lived to be 90, 80, some years old. Now, there were a lot of people that went out of there younger, but I don't know how many died of cancer, lung cancer, or stuff like that, but the majority of them seemed to go out with heart problems and stuff. My question is it not up a person's body metabolism that you're not able to cope with smoke and stuff like that? There are certain people. Other people can stand it. Now, when you take a guy that spent 44 years there and lived to be 92, there's something that it didn't bother him, that's for sure. And he smoked, chewed, and everything. But there are other people I know that can't stand smoke and stuff like that. But
well, now, Buster, you know, you've asked a very important question, and what we'll do is that we'll thank you for your call, and we'll pass that question on to the good doctor.
Yeah, I just asked Dr. S up there about that. Is it not up to a person's body like that can handle the
That's right.
situation?
Some people handle it better than others, Dr. Asif.
Well, definitely.
Well, yeah.
Definitely. I think that's a very moot point, or a very, very important point, sorry. And, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's physiology is different, and it just comes down to how good your body is at handling these toxins. But they are toxins, and they will cause you harm eventually.
Well, if you're going to live to be 92, you can't you can't have much harm done to you after that.
And let's hope we all live to be 92 and a long ways past that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your call, sir.
Thank you, Buster, very, very much. Good night now. Tobacco odors. Burning tobacco smoke creates bad odors which also cling to people's clothes, hair, and even their skin. We've heard that 1,000 times. This contamination is so intense that when someone smokes in an air-conditioned room, the air conditioning demands can jump as much as 600% in order to control the odors. You know, wow, 600%. In other words, if it cost you, you know, $1 a day to operate an air conditioner, you know, it's going to go up by 600% just to control the odors. It's going to work that much harder. So does that tell you something? The environment, which is better, to control the environment or to, you know, let them smoke because it doesn't affect some people as much as others? It's a good question, George, but I think it's, if I may, it brings a point to everybody.
So if it makes an air conditioner work that much harder, what's it doing to your lungs?
You got it.
Is it making your lungs work that much harder?
You got it. Exactly there. You see the numbers on the screen, 1-888-307-TVNB 8862. We are out there in Campbellton and the Miramichi. We get up into the, actually into the province of Quebec in some areas. If you're interested about smoking in public places, give us a call. We're sure you've got an opinion, yes or no. We respect all sides of the coin. I have yet to hear anyone tell me a reason why we should allow smoking in public places. Maybe some smokers can call us and give us some of their opinions. We'd really appreciate that. Doctor, again, you have some more information that you think that those statistics that you have up there on your left, which you showed on the screen in your earlier interview. It might even sound better if you decided to say something about them now.
Sure thing. I'd be happy to do so. You know, I started to talk before about the economic versus the political agenda, way of grassroots action affecting smoking, the smoking environment, non-smoking environment. The economic agenda is interesting because, as I started to say, some of our entrepreneurs are starting to recognize that, in fact, it makes good economic sense to cater to the non-smoking majority. There was a survey commissioned in, I think, March or April of 1999 around the province. And I'm most familiar with the Miramichi stats, so I'm going to talk about those, but I know that they pretty well equally apply across the province. What they found out, they asked people the question, would you be more willing to go to an establishment such as a restaurant, a bar, a shopping mall, whatever, if it was non-smoking or if it was smoking? And they found out that if they put a ban on smoking in these places, that about 3 times more people would be more likely to come in than would be less likely to go in. So it makes good business sense. It does not hurt the business owner. The reason for that is very simple. Non-smokers outnumber smokers about 3 to 1. And for every 1 smoker that's scared away, you get 3 non-smokers that are more likely to come in.
Right.
And I think
that's an interesting statistic. Actually, if you look at yourself as owning a business that caters to the public generally, and you are a proponent of non-smoking, and you suggest that maybe non-smoking, then the smoker comes to you and says, well, I'll never come back here again. And so you hear from him or her, that person, but you don't hear from the one that's on the outside that's not going to come in. You know what I mean? So you're always hearing the negative side of it. You're not hearing the positive side of it. And it seems that way in everything we do, doesn't it, gentlemen? You always hear about the bad side. You never hear about the good side. And we have all kinds of good statistics and information why people should or should not smoke. But again, you talk about the moral issue of the thing. The guy that does, or the person that likes to smoke, says to him, geez, I can't smoke in your place. I'm not going to come here anymore. But because he's not going to come anymore, there could be up to three more coming in to replace him.
But they eventually come back, though.
Yes, they do. You're right. We have another caller on the line, June from Bathurst. Should we stop smoking in public places, June?
Well, I chose to be a non-smoker, and I would like the freedom to remain that way. It's only common sense that if I wanted to expose my lungs to the many poisons in cigarettes, I would be a smoker now, wouldn't I? All I know is that I'm not bothering the smoker around me. But the second the smoker lights up, a smoke from his cigarettes invades my space and causes me much discomfort. So much so that I must limit the places I can go and enjoy myself without paying the price later. It's not a matter of making it difficult for smokers. It's a matter of health, plain and simple. This is not a complicated. There is no room for debate here. This is a black and white issue. There is no room for tolerance for smoking in public places or around small children any longer. It's time to protect the non-smoker. I have yet to hear one good point about smoking.
Bullets.
Anybody that's
Yes.
a smoker, it has my sympathy because I realize it is a tough habit to break.
Hang on a minute, June. I see the doctor wanted to say something?
Yes.
June, again, thanks for your call, and I just want to say that you hit it right on the head. In fact, that's a point I was going to make later on, and I'm glad you made it first. We're talking about health versus convenience. Okay, it's convenience or an inconvenience for the smoker to have to wait until he goes into a smoking area, he goes outside, whatever, to have his puff. But for that non-smoker and for that non-smoker's children, it's health. It's potentially dying in a number of years of cancer or
Well,
heart
most
disease.
definitely. My dad is an asthmatic. He likes to come in the mall, sit on the bench, wait for my mom while she walks around shopping. He cannot do so any longer.
And no one's ever said that smokers can't smoke in their own home, in the outdoors, in any number of places. It's just a matter of convenience versus the health of the people in the environment where you're living.
That's right. I don't think there's a safe place for smoking myself because in the home, small children are there. They can't speak up against it. We're paying the price in hospitals every day.
Thank you, June, very, very much. We have a whole bunch of callers on the line.
I appreciate
Thank you
Enjoy
very,
your
very
program.
much.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Now, again, you hear these points. They are important, and, this lady said that there shouldn't be a choice. I don't think that maybe we should be taking a different tact on this. The thought occurred to me while she was speaking. should we not, or should we be not be saying to the smoker, you're not allowed to smoke? Should we be trying to educate the smoker from a positive point of view and say to that, we would appreciate, you know, your concern for our health, rather than saying, you son of a gun, you shouldn't be smoking? Because that appears to be what's happening at this point. You know, we are pushing it on them, and therefore it's an aggressive attitude that the non-smoker has. And if a person wants to smoke, that's their choice. And if they choose to smoke, fine. But again, as I said earlier, please leave my lungs alone. And I would very much appreciate it if you would, and I respect you for that. So I think that maybe that's another avenue that can be explored in this, you know. Jessica from Bathurst, are we with you?
Yes.
Should we stop smoking in public places, Jessica?
Well, first I'd like to say that I was actually invited to be on the program tonight, but because of previous engagements I couldn't go. I'm a respiratory therapist. I work at the Regional Hospital Center in Bathurst.
Thank you for calling, Jessica. I spoke to you today, and I really appreciate your call.
Yes. My opinion on this is probably kind of biased because I see every day the effects that smoking has on people, on the public. I think that smoking should be banned in public areas such as malls, because shopping is, I think, a necessity. People have to go and shop. You can't stay away from it. Other places such as bars, restaurants, I think it should be up to the owner of the bar or the restaurant to decide whether or not smoking should be allowed in that establishment. Anyway, the consumers will make the decision for them, as Mr. Murphy has decided. So, but I think in public environments, especially shopping centers, where you can't step around it, you have to go shopping, I think it definitely should be banned.
Now, that's a very interesting point. You're going to segregate the type of businesses that should be told not to smoke, and very, very simply put and beautifully put, that a place where everybody has to go, there should be no smoking. Whereas if you have a choice to go, whether you should go to a place or not, then it's up to you to decide whether you want to be in that non-smoking or smoking environment.
Exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. Any more comments, Jessica?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I'm anxious to see what the results of this is going to be, and I hope that it will please both the smoking and not smoking population. I just wish that it won't be legislated, because that will hurt the bar and restaurant business in Bathurst. However, the malls, like I said, I think it should be a non-smoking establishment.
Thank you ever so much for your call. We
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate it, Jessica.
Okay, bye.
Good point, gentlemen. What do you think?
Very good points. She has some good points.
That's right. Doctor, can you add something to that?
Well, only that the survey did indicate that, in fact, most people would be more likely to go to establishments, including bars and restaurants, that would not be likely to go as a result of it going non-smoking. So maybe it wouldn't hurt. Maybe it wouldn't hurt the business owners. But again, you know, there's lots of ways of doing this. I mean, Jessica referred to, I think, a spectrum of types of approaches. One is a kind of a soft approach where you let the marketplace do its thing, and I think it will. The other way is to say, no, this is health. We have to protect people. And we're going to legislate absolute non-smoking environment in all public places. Or you can phase it in, saying any establishment over a certain number of seats has to have designated smoking, non-smoking areas, and below that, we're not going to apply it. There's lots of ways of doing it. Ultimately, it comes down to what the populace, what the electorate wants, and that's being voiced to their city councilors. And I think, you know, for instance, I did a presentation to Miramichi City Council a few weeks ago, and I know they took it under advisement, and they brought that forward to their subcommittee that works on bylaws, and they're considering it. So, you know, hopefully I'll do the same thing with Bathurst and Campbell in the near future, and we'll see. But ultimately, we live in a democracy, and it comes down to what the majority of the people want, and that's the way it should be.
I have another caller on the line. Wayne from Bathurst. Should we stop? How are you tonight, Wayne?
Oh, fine, thank you, sir.
Good. Should we stop smoking in public places?
Yes, most definitely, sir.
Give us your whys and wherefores.
Well, okay, first of all, I'm an asthmatic, and every time I go in a shopping center, if the smoke is severe, I have to leave. And I don't have that luxury if I have to go, let's say, to pick up my groceries or go to a doctor's office. And quite often it results in my being ill and have to buy prescriptions, puffers, and I'm ill for 2 weeks when it happens. So I support the non-smoking.
Well, thank you very, very much for your opinion. And we'll move on to another caller.
You're very welcome, sir. Have a good evening.
Appreciate your participation. Again, gentlemen, here when we sit and we discuss this situation, and I find that there's a point that is prevalent here, and that is that if we create a non-smoking environment in public places and private places, leave it up to the judgment of the proprietor of that private place, then the smoker may decide not to go in because he can't smoke in there. But he can also decide to go in and come out and smoke after. You're not preventing him from going into it. You're just preventing him from going into a helping the non-smoker or the person that is affected by this environment.
You're giving him a choice.
You're giving him a choice.
Yeah.
But you're not taking away a privilege from anybody.
No.
You're not. You're just saying that when you're inside the place, you shouldn't be harming the other people around you, and if you don't want to come in, it's entirely up to you. But we're not banning you from the place.
No. You should be able to sit down for at least a half an hour to an hour and not have a cigarette and sit there and enjoy your meal. You can smoke before you go there, and you can smoke after you leave.
Mm-hmm. I have another caller on the line. Mickey from Nigawak. Nikki, how are you tonight?
Good, and yourself?
Very, very well. And should we stop smoking in public places?
Well, I'm very up about that. Myself, I am a smoker.
Okay.
So I am going to agree with so much about people not smoking into public places, because I understand their rights and they have just as much right as I do. But I could see more of a designated area towards that, because it's so much inconvenient for the smokers. Like I say, I understand all points of view, but it can't be hurting businesses or people that much. Just myself, I'm a young girl, and I hear people tell me all the time about how they don't like going to places that about smoking, and they're always growling me if I'm sitting beside them or something with smoking. But the first place you see them is, like, for an example, at a bar, and I tell them, well, if you hate the smoke so much, well, why do you come here? Well, this is the best place to be. Like, it's kind of ironic how people say they don't want it, and they don't want it around them, but they end up in places where it is, and they're fine. So when you see that all the time, it makes you wonder. Like, it's hard to understand some of the people when they talk like that. It's weird.
Yes, I agree. Do you believe that maybe, as we suggested just a few minutes ago, that if your environment was not in a bar somewhere, was a non-smoking environment, we were not preventing the smoker from coming in, we were allowing the place to be non-smoking, and therefore if you chose not to go in, there'd be no problem, but you could go in and not smoke, enjoy the evening, step outside for a minute or two, and have a smoke, and then go back in again. How would you feel about that?
Well, I do that now, but it's still so much inconvenient because, like I say, I spend the money just as much as a non-smoker, in which I say I do understand their view and I agree with it so much. But I have my money in there just as much as any establishment, that I'm spending my money in there too. And when I have to leave, that's an inconvenience for me. Like, I don't like it just as much as they do, so it's hard on both ends.
Okay, thank you very, very much. It's the first we've heard from a smoker.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's time to open a non-smoking bar.
Yes, it is.
I think that's the issue here.
Yes, it is. Somewhere along the line, try
That way they
opening
have a choice.
That's right, they have a choice. Open a non-smoking bar. Makes a lot of sense. If anybody's got the guts. Because, and I use the word guts, because people say that in a bar environment that smoke seems to go with it, unless you're a non-smoker.
Well, you know what, though?
Well, it creates an ambiance.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, well, yeah, it's because
A foggy
you can't
ambiance.
see across the room, yeah. But I'll tell you something, just listen to the number of callers. I bet you a lot of them would be willing to go to a non-smoking bar.
I wouldn't be
If
surprised.
anyone's out there thinking of starting one, here's your opportunity. It's a niche to get into, and you'll probably make a killing.
There you go. We've only got about 8 minutes left in the program. If there are any other callers out there, 1-888-307-TVNB. That is 8862. By the way, that number, unfortunately, does not work for those people that might be viewing us from the province of Quebec. You can call us long distance at 549-6674, reverse the charges, if you're interested enough to give us a call. Local callers in Bathurst, call us at 549-6674. It's an interesting subject, gentlemen. It's coming along very, very well. A couple of good ideas have come out of this. One of the things I think that seems to be predominant is no legislation. Bill, I don't mind telling you, when I first talked to you, I had trepidations, if I may use the word. But I listen to the public, and I hear them saying it. It makes a lot of sense. How are you feeling at this point?
Well, the government has to give us the choice on whether we want to go smoking or non-smoking in our establishments, unless the government owns the establishment, but they don't. So it should be up to us, the owners, to, like he says, to start the grassroots movement.
All right, now, I got a point here that I want to bring up, and I decide in my business to go non-smoking. And then you come into my business and you sit down and you know it's a non-smoking business, but you decide that you're going to light up. So I say to you, you'll have to leave because you can't smoke. Okay, I'll ask you to put it out initially. You'll say no. It's a free country. I can smoke where I please. And so I ask you to leave. Am I now liable for having done something against your freedom?
I don't think so.
That's, I think, where legislation has to come into play.
Well, I think establishment owners have the right to it's private property. They can do what they want in their private property. I mean, I think that's if they want it non-smoking, it should be non-smoking, period.
All right.
It's their bottom line that's being affected there.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would differ a little bit. I mean, I think that legislation does have a place. And, I mean, all I'm saying is it has to be the will of the electorate. That's expressed through city councilors. City councilors make the decision based on what their constituents tell them.
Right.
I'm not saying which way it has to be. Obviously, I have a bit of a bias being a medical health officer. I have been lobbying for legislation. However, this is ultimately up to the electorate, and it's up to the city councilors. So I raise the awareness of the issue. I put the facts in front of them. Let them make their decision. If you go legislation, you're protecting those who wouldn't be protected otherwise.
You're on. We have Mrs. Felix from Campbellton. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Should we stop smoking in public places?
Yes, I think it should be banned.
Give us some of your words of wisdom.
Well, my husband smoked for 40 years, and he quit smoking about 10, 15 years ago. And my children are grown up now, but they're all suffering problems, lung problems, which go back to when my husband smoked and others smoked in the house. And they don't realize how much damage they're doing to their children's health. And I find there was one lady called, I find they support their habit, like everything else. And we shouldn't have to, when we go into malls, we should not have to put up with someone else's smoke.
You got it. Thank you very much for your opinion.
You're welcome.
Good night
Bye.
now. Again, it seems to be almost universal. The replies here saying that yes, there should be no smoking in public places, and private business should have the right to be able to make their own decision. I hope that this message gets out to our councillors and our municipal government, at least, if it doesn't get out to our provincial and federal government.
I think they're listening.
I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Any more callers out there? We'd love to hear from you. 1-888-307-8862 and 549-6674 if you're in the Bathurst area. There's so many things that can be talked about. Agency has now classified secondhand smoke. That's the Environmental Protection Agency has now classified secondhand smoke as a known human carcinogen. Now, you've said that before. Additionally, recent studies indicate that secondhand smoke causes death from heart disease. Did you say Magella from Bathurst? Angela from Bathurst. Good evening, Angela. How are you tonight?
Oh, fine.
Good. Should we stop smoking in public places?
I'm all for that.
Yes.
And as a smoker,
Aha.
I am a smoker. I've been a smoker for about 20 years.
Okay.
That
means you're only 26 or 27 years old, right?
Sure. I wish I was. If I was, maybe I wouldn't start.
There you go.
Maybe I could stop sooner. Now it's really hard to stop.
Give me a reason why you as a smoker believe that there should be no smoking in public places.
Well, I feel like there was that lady that talked about the kids. And you get a lot of kids now in that area. Like, you go to the restaurant and you'll always have kids around you. Or you go anywhere in the toy area, in all the stores. And I mean, like, you feel kind of guilty. If you're a smoker, like I do anyway, I feel guilty, like, just for them, like, smelling my clothes or, it's stuff like that. I wouldn't smoke in a public place because of that, because of the kids and the elderly And as for myself, I suffer from hypertension. I've had hypertension for about that 20 years.
I see.
And it's
Bizarre, you've been smoking for 20 years. Does that cause your hypertension?
No, I think it was hereditary.
Okay.
It's not like just in the family. But
Thanks very much, Angela. We appreciate your call. We got a couple more callers, and we only got a couple of minutes to go. So we'll pass on to the next call, and it'll be with us in a short second. Again, we're talking here a smoker who says it would probably be better not to smoke in public places. There's a lot of merit to those statements. I don't mind telling you. We're up to 11 calls now, and every one has said. Bernadette from Beresford, how are you today?
Hi. What should we do? Should we stop smoking in public places, Bernadette?
Yes, yes, for sure. And what I calling tonight, we did a petition, and we presented that to the Batters Council.
Yes.
We have already 500 names, and we have another 200 at present. Plus,
At present?
yeah, plus a letter of a doctor of Batters support us. So.
Je comprends ce que tu me dis, puis tu es une personne de la langue française.
Oui.
Si tu voudrais transmettre ton message en français,
Oui.
ça sera plus qu'apprécié, je le sais.
OK. On a présenté déjà au Conseil de Batters 500 noms, puis on a ramassé un autre environ 200, puis on a eu une lettre d'un docteur qui nous supporte, puis le monde est... actuellement, le problème, c'est que le monde veut signer leur nom 2 fois. C'est mon pire problème. Ils sont tellement... Tu sais, puis j'ai beaucoup de fumeurs qui ont signé. Ça me fait encore plus plaisir de voir un fumeur qui signe qu'un non-fumeur actuellement. C'est incroyable le support qu'on a sur ce côté-là.
La question sur votre pétition se dit comment?
Sur la pétition, elle se dit... nous demandons que qu'il n'y a plus de fumage dans les centres d'achat et les endroits publics de la ville de Bathurst.
C'est bien, merci Bernadette. On est fini. Il faut dire bonsoir pour ce soir. We have to say goodnight for tonight. It's been an interesting program. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for your participation.
Thank you, Jack.
And we'll,
Thank you very much.
We'll do a wrap-up on our own after this. They've stopped us now, so we're fine.